I cannot begin to tell you guys how much this show moved me, genuinely. And what's crazy is I was not even the biggest Andor fan back when Rogue One came out, okay? I loved Rogue One, it was a great movie, great storytelling, but Cassian Andor was not my main selling point of the movie. It just had really good writing, and it kind of showcased what I love about Star Wars the most. But when they announced Andor, the first season, I wasn't really overjoyed about it at the time. Like, being a Star Wars fan is very hard, okay? Because we don't get much. Honestly, we barely get anything. So when something does come out of Disney on the Star Wars side, we all just have, like, we have to take what we can get at this point. And that's how I felt about Andor. Like, I saw it and I wasn't like, oh my God, this is so cool and this is very interesting. I was just like, okay, another Star Wars project, I gotta watch it. Like, because who knows when the next Star Wars project is going to come out. Like, at this point, it's very sparse. A lot of things is announced, but nothing really ever comes out of it, barely anything. To my surprise, after finishing the first season of Andor, I was left wanting so much more. The show was so good and it really encompassed everything I loved about Star Wars, which is like the little people. You know, like not even just the little people, but just the regular people. Because Star Wars was built around all of the grandiose themes and grandiose characters, like the Luke Skywalkers, the Mandalorians, like all the big special people in the universe, in their galaxy. But like, I was always interested in the small people, the people on the ground, all of those big actions that Luke and all them did, the Death Star and the Empire and all that. I always wanted to know, and I was always curious on how that affected the people on the ground and what they do, the day-to-day people who just live their lives doing normal shit. And that's exactly what Andor is. And it does it in such a good way that isn't like flaunting it or like, you know, sugarcoating it. It's like, this is what it's like for normal people, and yes, they can make a difference. Another thing that I love about this show and what it does is that it showcases the other sides of the rebellion that we don't get to see.
Is there no one who can help us? Is there no one?
Trina!
Saw Gerrera's side, which is the more extreme side of the rebellion. Each group like working towards the same goal to defeat oppression by the Empire, but they're just going about it in completely different ways. One side is like doing everything in the shadows, like Luthen and Clea, or, you know, Saw Gerrera's, who's just more extreme and upfront about it, just bombing shit. And you got like the rebellion group on Gorman, who just are unorganized, unprepared, and just, you know, need leadership. And it was so cool to see that, because we just don't really get to see those kind of sides in the movies. The movies never really built it up, and that's why I feel like Andor did such a good job with world building the galaxy of Star Wars. It did it a lot better than any of the movies actually have so far. Before we get too far into the video, I want to briefly explain my review process. The format that I use for reviewing shows and movies on this channel will be a 5-category based process before I give my review at the end of the video. The first category being story, where I take a look at the story as a whole and all of its story arcs, removing the names of all the characters out of it and just focus on how well the story was written and how well it stays true to itself throughout the project. Next category being characters and how well they are fleshed out and written throughout this story. I focus heavy on the main cast, but also a few of my favorite characters and some supporting characters. Genre is the third category on this list, where I present the question, how well does this project fit into this space? Conversely, does this project do anything different to maybe stand out? Fourth category on this list is pacing. This is probably the only category that is subject to change in the future. Maybe if you have some suggestions, you can leave them down in the comments. But I lightly touch on this category because I kind of feel like it's subjective for everybody, and some moments where it feels like tension building may feel like a drag for others. So I lightly touch on this one. Last but not least, my favorite category, visuals, where I talk about the cinematography, the editing of the entire project as a whole, and how well and beautifully it's normally done. Me being a cinematographer / editor myself, I love touching on this one. This is my favorite one to critique and just fanboy over. So yes, please forgive me, I can ramble on a lot in this last category. With that being said, let's get into the rest of the video. For the second season story to be about the darker side of the rebellion, doing some shady things, whether it's stealing ships and equipment from the Empire, rescuing or becoming a double agent for the rebellion, or even occasionally killing a rebel informant who's lost their nerve. And the way that Tony Gilroy handles all of these story arcs with such cohesion is actually a genius way of storytelling.
Through experience, so nervous about not having something super exciting to turn the page to, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna populate this thing, and there's always going to be someplace interesting to go, and all these people are going to inform each other about each other, and I've learned over the last millennium of doing this that I've learned how to get people in the same room together.
Tony Gilroy makes sure that you feel the stakes of this show. Every single week, I was on the edge of my seat, damn near biting my nails, because this show just builds so much tension. I'm just waiting for these two characters to have a dialogue on screen, and that's how good this show is written. It will have you on the edge of your seat, just waiting for something so simple to just happen. The story does not have high highs, but very deep lows, and that's so real because in a world, in a galaxy where you are constantly oppressed, you're on the brink of war, and you're so desperate for information to turn the tide. Like, that is real situations, that's such real feelings, that it's a real story there. That feels so realistic and so relatable that it's like not everything is gonna be good in the end. Not everything is going to be happy, at least not without sacrifice. And that's what Andor does so well. And that's what I feel like truly is the theme of this season, or honestly, no, just the series as a whole of Andor itself. The theme is sacrifice, because everyone in this show, everyone in this story sacrificed something for the rebellion, sacrificed so much toward their cause, and not just the rebellion. Also people on the side of the Empire, because this story does a great job of showing both sides and making us care for both sides, even going as far as to putting the bad side in a good light to create that moral ambiguity that makes this story so damn interesting. Hats off to Tony Gilroy and everyone who had a hand in writing Andor. They did such a good job with bridging 2 points of storytelling, the first season of Andor and the story of Rogue One together. A story this good has not came out of Disney for Star Wars in such a long time. I'm still in denial about it. Disney, please let this man keep writing stories.
There's a Senate catering entrance we like. These credentials will work inside, but they scan for weapons at the entrance. You'll want to hang on to this one. It's a surface pass. It's good all season.
I won't be needing it. I'm not coming back. I'm done after this.
First character on this list that we're going to talk about is, of course, Cassian Andor, the man himself. Now, Cassian is a very interesting character, a character that actually didn't really interest me the very first time I met him in Rogue One. I didn't really care for him. I kind of just saw Jyn Erso as the main character of that movie, for real, even though he was right there next to her. She kind of felt like the main one. He didn't really interest me that much. That's also why I wasn't too interested in his own show when his show got announced for the first time. But watching him in the show, it kind of just, he had such a strong personality, such a strong, I won't say like selfishness, but like he was on a mission for himself. He didn't really feel like a person who ended up in the rebellion. And I think that's a very interesting way for them to introduce Cassian to us, because we were introduced to him in Rogue One as a rebellious rebel who will go against orders at any given time if he feels it's in the rebellion's best interest. But then start off the show by showing us a side of Cassian that genuinely doesn't care too much about the rebellion at all. So right off the jump, they created this gap in his character for so much development that I feel that season 2 pretty much covered very well. Now that we have the nuances of this character, all the decision making and thought processes make so much more sense now in Rogue One. There was one trait of Cassian that I did not really like too much, and not to shit on his character at all, because he's still a great, well-rounded character, and that is his lack of self-awareness, or should I say his lack of self-honesty. Everyone around Cass would know him better than he would like to admit, and he never ever really told the truth to himself. He was never really honest with himself. Even around the last moments with Bix, the love of his life, he still told her that he wanted to run away with her, which isn't a lie. That could be true, but even Bix knew that deep down he needed to be there with the rebellion, that deep down the rebellion was his calling, and Cass never wanted to accept that or never wanted to face that. He knew it, everyone else around him knew it, and that's just something that with this character is something that kind of got on my nerves a little bit. Only after it had happened a few times over and over and over again that I was just like, stop saying that you're done with all this, you want to be here. And in the end, he kind of owned up to it. He finally stepped up and finally committed to the rebellion fully. We love that kind of character development, but just know it was agonizing for me to watch sometimes. Next character I want to talk about is Mon Mothma. Mon fucking Mothma. Alright? I never thought I was going to be a Mon Mothma fan. Like, I genuinely never thought so. Because before Andor Season 2, Mon Mothma was really, in my eyes, just like glorified fan service. And I kind of feel bad for like sending her that way, but that's pretty much all they really used her for. Like, every time she showed up in a cameo, whether it was in Rebels or Clone Wars, it was just her to make a big speech and then disappear. Like, we just never really knew much about her, but this show actually delved into her story, like gave her a really, really rich story worth telling. And I'm so glad that they did, because now I'm like, holy fuck, this woman really sacrificed everything. So did Kaz, like so did so many other characters, but like it just didn't really register to me how like fucked up they really made her sacrifice. Like her daughter's wedding, she's lost her daughter to the Empire essentially. Maybe not literally, but like she does not believe in the rebellion and her mother does. When I was watching those scenes, all I could think about is like, how does it feel to raise your enemy? Essentially, like when your own child does not share the same level of thinking with you or share the same opinion as you on political matters, when it's like on such opposite and drastic sides of the spectrum. It's so crazy. That to me, that was like really heartbreaking, especially that conversation she had with her right before she stepped out. And her daughter said that she wished she was drunk. Oh my goodness, that hurt me. And I'm not even a parent, bro. It was so crazy. But Mon Mothma is a great character in this show. She is put through the ringer left and right. There's so much that Mon goes through, whether it's dealing with her husband and their infidelity of the relationship, her daughter getting married off, and her secrecy with Bail trying to kickstart the rebellion officially, Luthen breathing down her back about secret plans and stuff like that. It's just, there's so much. And then all of the senator stuff. I felt for Mon so much because I was getting stressed for her. There is a lot going on, and that dancing scene was so real. You're trying to just live in the moment, but you just need to have a breakdown while dancing. That was the most relatable thing I think I ever seen came out of Star Wars. Genuinely. Mon Mothma is such a great character in this show. I don't really have anything bad or anything that I disliked about her character throughout the show. Her resilience is truly unmatched, and there's no one better to lead the rebellion but her. Next character I want to talk about is Cyril. Now, guys, when I tell you that Cyril was probably the most uninteresting character to me throughout the first season, I remember his first episodes that he got, where the episode was just full of him and his mother. I think it took me 4 tries to get through that episode because I just fell asleep so many times while watching it. It was just so slow. It was so slow for me, man. I did not care about Cyril at all. He was just like I think it's more so of the character trope that kind of made me fall off of him, is that he was always like that teacher's pet of the police guard that was on Ferrex. Like, you know, he always wanted to do good. He was the one trying so hard to be seen and noticed and all of that good stuff. It just didn't appeal to me, and I'm just like, oh god. Normally these characters would go either one of 2 ways. They either die or they actually get recognized and they turn even worse. If these types of characters survive, they will do the most heinous shit you've ever seen. Cyril is really different, and I say that because the way they wrote him for season 2, I was locked the fuck in for this man's story arc. I shit you guys not. Every time I saw him on screen, I sat up in my seat. I was almost rooting for him too, because he was just a part of something so much bigger than himself that he had no idea.
There's a scene early on in the first season, if you ever watch it, where he's back in his mother's that apartment, that box he lives in with her, and he's in his childhood room, and he's at his window in the morning, sitting on the side of his bed, and you know, there's a thing where like there's 30 seconds of sunlight comes through his room, and he's waiting for that, like he's waited his whole life, and on his desk are his little action figures, and like that guy could go, his fantasies could be anything, and he buys into this fascist imperial mindset and constructs everything. The whole cathedral he builds inside himself is all about that, and Dedra and everything else, and when that comes crashing down, that's really sad to me.
But Cyril ended up dying in one of the most tragic parts of this show, and his character arc was fulfilled, and I didn't see it coming. Normally you could see a character's arc is finished, and for some reason I just didn't realize it here, because he's written so well in a way that it just felt like he was doing what he felt was right. Like, he was coming to a change, and I should have known right then when he confronted Dedra that this character is about to be finished. Cyril was the type of character who just took his job so seriously, took everything he did for the Empire so seriously in order to be seen and be heard and feel accomplished. You know, that was all he really wanted to be, is just acknowledged and, you know, rewarded for his hard efforts and stuff like that. Which is why him and Dedra work so well together, because she is essentially the same way. These are 2 people cut from the same cloth. I've never seen a person like Dedra who was groveling for validation so hard. Like, she became her own worst enemy. She ended up self-sabotaging herself, that landed her in jail for the rest of the series. But to everyone's surprise, when Cyril stood up for himself for the first time since the series kind of had just started, you know, it really felt like this character was just starting to show some actual development. But as I said earlier, there really isn't a good ending for a character like Cyril. If he were to have stayed alive after confronting Dedra on Gorman about what's really going on this planet and what the Empire really wants, he probably would have ended up in jail like Dedra, or more than likely, given his reaction to the Gorman massacre, he might have even switched sides. And if he would have switched sides and went to the rebels, that would have been a huge conflicting emotion with his character that I would have honestly loved to see him coping with, or switching sides, you know, to the innocence of the people. However, I don't think that would have happened, because if he would have started showing signs of switching, I think Dedra herself would have had to kill him. Now, you guys down in the comments, let me know if you believe that if Cyril shows signs of switching sides to the rebels or to help the Gormans out in that situation, do you believe that Dedra would have it in her to actually kill the man that she fell in love with? Me personally, I don't think so. She's not as cold-hearted as she looks. she actually has a heart somewhere in there. I could be wrong though, maybe the show just humanized her too much for me.
The Tinian Codex was forged 2,000 years ago on a planet where sight was considered a disability.
And what were you going to do if I wasn't here?
Anything I had to.
Moving on from Cyril, the last character I want to talk about is Clea. Clea. Oh my goodness. You guys have no idea. Clea has become my favorite character of the entire series. I saved my favorite character for last. Clea just hits on so many levels as a great character. She is just so damn phenomenal in this show. Her character shows so much resolve all the way through. She is honestly, for me, the glue that's keeping everything together, including Luthen. Luthen is this guy, the father figure for her, who introduced her to this life that she is now upholding on her back. She seems like she is carrying everything. She damn near could actually run the entire Rebel Alliance right now. She has what it takes to be a leader. She is absolutely the most greatest asset that the rebellion has. She's so strong-willed. Like, she will get whatever she needs done by any means necessary. She is so dangerous, genuinely never to be underestimated. And I love characters like that. Clea is like the North Star for Luthen. She keeps everything in check. Honestly, when he was faltering, riddled with guilt for what happened to Bix, she was the one who kind of kept him in line and basically said, we don't have time for these feelings. That's a luxury we can't afford. And I was like, that's so fucking cold-hearted. But in a time, like, but I understand. Like, I understand it though. Like, there was a part of me that's like, fuck, that's so mean and fucked up. She's talking about this like Bix is just logistics and planning, but no, she's a human being. Like, Clea is always about work. It's always about work first, how we do this, when we do this, what we got to do this. And it just feels like she's really heartless. They have to keep those kind of feelings and those emotions like deep down. And so it's like, how do you get that character to actually feel something or actually, you know, care about anything other than the mission? They have to lose what's closest to them. And in Andor season 2, Clea lost the one thing that was actually close enough to her to make her feel, and that was Luthen. The father figure she had, the one that rescued her from the battlefield and taught her the ways of the rebellion that she originally rejected as a kid. She didn't understand the way of the rebellion. She had so much revenge and like hate filled in her heart as a young child that she just wanted to destroy everything, just blow up everything, regardless who got sacrificed along the way. Like, she was a dangerous kid. If she was a Jedi, if she was force sensitive, she would have easily became a strong ass Sith. But I digress. She had so much emotion built up, anger, all of that, rightfully so. When you live in a world where people just die at any moment, at any day, Empire just comes and just decides to start killing randomly, you have a lot of people with a lot of built up anger and hate. But Luthen told her to save it, bank that hate, and be ready to use it when I tell you to. And that's exactly what she did. When Clea successfully took care of her last mission for Luthen, which was ensuring that he was dead so that the Empire could not get any more information out of him, I genuinely thought her character arc was over. I thought she was gonna die. I was on the edge of my seat for the remainder of those episodes, praying that my favorite character did not get shot in the head by a blaster, because I didn't see an out for her. I did not. While she was waiting in the safe house for Cassian to come and save her, she had no idea even if her message had gotten through to anybody yet. She had no idea who was coming to save her until they arrived. So normally these kind of situations, we have a character who really only cares about one thing and only cares about that one mission and kind of negates every other part of life for that mission. They either, one, die after losing the one thing they actually care about secretly, or two, they find something that's worth caring about. And I say that because after Luthen died and she actually made it to Yavin, Clea as a character was so lost. She was completely lost. She had no sense of direction anymore. Her fight was essentially over. Not really, but she feels that she really has nothing left to give now that she's lost Luthen and she is on Yavin with the rest of the rebellion, looking at what they accomplished. Like, you know, it feels like she's at the end of her journey, yet she's still alive. So I'm so curious right now, where is Clea? She is alive and I want to see where she's at in the present day of Star Wars. She might be dead because there's been a lot of time skips since Rogue One. She wasn't on the mission of Rogue One. So it's like, I want to know, where is Clea? I want to know what her reaction was when she found out that Cass died. Like, what was her reaction? Like, I just want to keep up with this character now because so much has changed for her. She's been through so much, she's lost so much. Same thing with Mon Mothma, like in all these other side characters. Andor just does a really good job at taking these characters, flushing them out, giving us a reason to care about them, and then moving them on. Like, you know, they're fulfilling the rest of their lives together, and I want to know what Clea does with hers. Okay, now let's talk about the genre of this show. Disney has it labeled as an action adventure sci-fi story, which, yes, it is. It's Star Wars. Action is definitely there. The adventure, obviously, it's sci-fi fiction. It's fucking Star Wars. It's actually peak of Star Wars, genuinely. It hits its genre very well. Also, you could add in political drama because it is a fantastic political drama as well. It hits all of those points very well. It fits so well into the genre, I honestly don't really have too much to even add on to it because there isn't anything that it doesn't do well. It's Star Wars, it's gonna fit into science fiction, it's gonna fit into the action. The political drama is not always there with every Star Wars project, so this is a huge plus, and I really honestly want more of it. I'm honestly growing a fatigue for all the lightsaber battles, and I might just be a minority here of the fandom, but give me a lot more on the ground spy espionage stories, sprinkle in some political drama, and I'm hooked. I'm sad. That's the kind of Star Wars that actually moves me. Surprisingly not, the pacing for Andor season 2 was actually pretty solid. I'm saying that because season 1, it felt like a drag to me, so much so, especially through Cyril's parts and maybe some of the camping parts when Cass was meeting the new group. Those really felt like a drag, but season 2, I have never felt that feeling at all through watching it. Like, there was not a single part where it felt like it dragged. There wasn't a single part where it felt like it skipped over too fast. The time jumps were a little jarring just for me, but I don't think it's a big thing to take away from the pacing because it still felt like we were right where we left. Nothing really took us out of it. It didn't break my immersion of the show. Tony Gilroy did a good job at speeding up the story when it needed to be and then slowing it down to let it breathe at the most captivating moments. For instance, the Gorman massacre. That moment being played out the way that it was such a fucking masterpiece. It genuinely just felt so compelling. It felt like I was actually a part of a culture. It felt like I was there, not only because I was immersing myself with a very loud sound system while watching it, but because of the crowd, the atmosphere that was built around it, and the fact that he lingered so long on the Gorman community, the whole culture of them singing their Gorman anthem as they were being oppressed, shot down. It was so emotional, so moving. That scene was just so much. It had so much depth and so much heart into that. It was so perfectly well paced throughout everything, and he does that so well throughout the series because he also speeds it up towards the end as we get closer to the Empire finding out that Clea is still on the planet, that she knows the plans for the Death Star and how to get them. Galen Erso and the entire plot of Rogue One, it speeds up towards the end of this story because it's going to lead into the movie, and it's perfectly paced for that. Star Wars has no shortage of beautiful cinematography throughout its projects, and Andor is absolutely no different. The only thing that makes this show such a gem when it's on a cinematography level is that it's so grounded. Yes, we get some beautiful space shots from time to time when dealing with the Empire or Andor flying through space on a ship, but for majority of it is such a gritty viewpoint of what's going on the ground, either through Cass's point of view, Bix's point of view, Clea's or Luthen's. Interesting way to visualize Star Wars. One thing that I genuinely love about Andor's cinematography and visuals is that they put a lot of emphasis and focus on architecture, and they do a lot of center focus kind of shots. Like, they always have things in the center of frame. They play with symmetry a lot. And the architecture in this show, architecture in Star Wars in general, is always so good and so fascinating to me. I also genuinely like architecture. But Star Wars just has such a very photogenic way of building their structures, and when they set the camera to it, they genuinely do it in a way that is so pleasing to the eye. They know how to satisfy cinematography fans, honestly, because there's so much good shots in here that just show off some of the most perfect structures in Star Wars. There's a lot of great overhead shots of the city. There's a lot of great shots of just the structures in general. When we were at Mon Mothma's Ark and we were on Coruscant, looking at all of those structures, the buildings and everything, they showed no remorse in just giving us a lot of establishing shots of these buildings, which rightfully so. I'm so glad they did, because these structures were so beautiful. A lot of it, I believe, was done in the UK, and other parts of it was shot in Spain. And can I just say that Coruscant has never looked this good before in Star Wars? Like, most shots of Coruscant we get, like, is either background shots of the city, or we'll get like a street level kind of thing, or either flying through the cars. Like, we barely get to see the buildings, like the actual depth of Coruscant, which is a shame, because Coruscant is such a dense city and it's always been one of my favorite places in Star Wars universe, but it's never been really explored to the extent that Andor takes it. Like, we get to genuinely see how beautiful the city is. And some of the worst parts of the story, though, mind you, like, we get to see some of the greatest looking shots while the most suspenseful thing is happening in the background. The cinematographers on Andor chose to use very specific lens when shooting this kind of series, and they mostly, from what I can tell, use a anamorphic wide angle lens, which those are very wide depth of field type of lenses that are good for like really big establishing shots, or just to establish scale in certain scenes. And for me as a cinematographer, I do love scale. Like, I love feeling in the room. I love feeling how big the room is. I love feeling and seeing what's in the background. There is a tinge of very heavy blurriness, but I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me. It may bother some people, but it didn't bother me too much in these kind of scenes, like the wedding scene for Mon Mothma and her daughter. Those kind of scenes I'm okay with. The creative choice of using a wide angle lens in this certain scene, because it draws in more of the story. You get to see more of the culture. You get to see a lot more of what's going on. It adds an element of storytelling, of visual storytelling, that wouldn't be done otherwise with any other kind of lens. I did very much enjoy the colors of Andor. They all really fit the tone of what the story was trying to tell, and it just further add to the visual storytelling of each scene. My in particular favorite one had to be the Mon Mothma dance scene. The colors in that scene, very warm, very vibrant, just, it's so good. That's the one that stuck with me the most. Another scene would be Clea in the safe house at the very end. The blues in that moment, her and Cassian sitting by the window. That scene was so beautiful. I think I'm gonna use it for the thumbnail of this video. It's so nice. They just really hit it spot on with the colors. I have literally no arguments against it. Even in the Empire's buildings, it felt like it still had a soul, even though majority of it was just a plain bone white. The white was very soft, and it was just so nice to actually look at, especially when the architecture of the insides, the interior of the buildings kind of added to that feeling as well. I can't end this video without talking about this masterful piece of cinematography at the end of this season. The shot of Andor walking into Rogue One. That's what we should really just rename this whole shot, is just Andor walking into Rogue One. Just effectively blending these two projects together seamlessly through visual storytelling with little to no dialogue at all, besides the ending point when he gets into the ship to talk to K2. It was so good. The way that they just show off pretty much everything with no words, the story, the build up, the lead in to this movie, while also giving us closure with the rest of these other characters, the side characters, essentially, and visually showing us what Cassian has officially became a part of. This is his character arc moment. This is the ending of his, you know, full circle moment with his character. What I talked about earlier was the flaw that I didn't really find too appealing about Cassian, is that he wasn't as self-aware, or just wouldn't be honest with himself about what he truly really wanted to be until towards the end of this show. And I feel like this shot is what kind of solidifies that. It's the cherry on top, and it tells the audience that he is confidently here. He is fully committed, and as he's walking past that force teller, she even knows that he has finally came into himself. He knows what his purpose is, and he knows why he's here, and he's not afraid to admit it anymore. This shot was amazing and a great way to end off the series, and perfectly bridges the gap between two stories, and unfortunately brings a close to Cassian's journey. And I couldn't think of a better way of doing it, for real. Like, honestly, this show just has so much put into it, so much love, so much care and thought behind it. And what's so crazy is that it's really just a story about people on the ground. Star Wars doesn't have to be this overcomplicating thing about the Force and these magic Force users and these evil witches, and it just doesn't really have to be about any of that in order to make a very interesting and compelling story. It can still be about the regular people and their day-to-day lives and how they cope with all of what's going around in this galaxy. And I feel like that's what me as a Star Wars fan genuinely wants more of. Huge thank you to Tony Gilroy and everyone who's a part of this crew and had a hand in making this show. It was very good. It was genuinely phenomenal. It's a show that I think could also introduce a lot of people into Star Wars if they haven't already. The only kickback I have in my mind about using this show as a gateway is that it's so good, and it may set the wrong expectation on what Star Wars is. I feel like if a person just now getting into Star Wars and wants to watch Andor as its first storyline in there, I don't think it would set a good tone for them, because if they really enjoy Andor, when they go to watch all the other Star Wars projects, they may be let down a little bit. My overall rating for Andor comes at a whopping 9 out of 10. Great and compelling story with deep and emotionally fleshed out characters, with stellar and emotionally gripping cinematography. This show just doesn't have a shortage of greatness, and I wouldn't be wrong in saying that this is a masterpiece of Star Wars fiction. If you enjoyed this video and this kind of style of reviews, please let me know down in the comments down below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button. I'll see you guys in my next video.